The ongoing war between Israel and the armed Palestinian group Hamas may not be primarily about Iran, as it is deep-rooted in Israel's decades-long occupation of Palestinian territories. Its brutal siege of the Gaza Strip, and its deprivation of dignity to millions of Palestinians under its rule. But Iran's stakes in the current conflict cannot be ignored while making a proper analysis of the October 7th surprise attack launched by Hamas against Israel. Israel and some analysts in the US and beyond have been quick to label Tehran as the true culprit behind the Hamas attack, citing its financial and military backing to the armed group. Apart from Iran, Hamas has occasionally received financial and political support from other Middle Eastern countries such as Turkey and Qatar as well. But Turkey shares extensive security ties with Israel, and Qatar has not only previously acted as a mediator with Israel, but also officially stands for the two-state solution. Meanwhile, Iran is the only nation among the lot which continues to back Hamas against their common enemy Israel and promises to fight Tel Aviv to total destruction. In 2020, the U.S. State Department reported that Iran had provided more than $100 million annually to armed groups such as Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. More importantly, Tehran offers Hamas membership in an anti-Israel club called the Axis of Resistance, containing members of armed forces from across the region, including the Houthis in Yemen, who have been fighting the Saudis for decades in a war backed by the U.S., Hezbollah in Lebanon, which shares tense ties with Israel, and other groups from Iraq and Syria. So, does this mean that Iran had a direct hand in planning the October 7th attacks? A White House official has concluded that it's too early to make such claims. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on October 8 that there's a long relationship between Iran and Hamas. In fact, Hamas wouldn't be around in the way that it is without the support that it's received from Iran over the years. In this specific instance, we have not yet seen evidence that Iran directed or was behind this particular attack, but there's certainly a long relationship. However, following Hamas' surprise attack on Israel, several media reports citing Hamas and Hezbollah members said that Iran supported and helped plan the attack, which has so far claimed hundreds of lives on both sides, mostly civilians. Given their cozy relation, analysts suggest that it is highly unlikely that Hamas' attack on Israel could have happened without at least tacit support from Iran or its knowledge, but there is no proof to back this analysis. Ali Hashim, a Lebanese Al Jazeera correspondent, who is an expert on Iran's regional alliances, has said that the attacks were probably an Axis decision. The Iranian regime has shown resolute support for the attacks by celebrating it on October 7th with impromptu fireworks and festivals. Members of parliament shouted "Death to Israel" in the Majlis. Yahya Safavi, a former top commander of the IRGC and currently a top advisor to Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, spoke in no uncertain terms when he said, "We support this operation, congratulate Palestinian fighters on it, and are sure that the Axis of Resistance will back it too." On October 9, Iran denied any involvement in the unprecedented attacks launched by Hamas within Israel, saying, "We emphatically stand in unflinching support of Palestine. However, we are not involved in Palestine's response as it is taken solely by Palestine itself. The resolute measures taken by Palestine constitute a wholly legitimate defense against 7 decades of oppressive occupation and heinous crimes committed by the illegitimate Zionist regime." The same day, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson said the country is calling for an emergency meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation over the regional developments. It also issued a statement warning that anyone who threatens the Islamic Republic of Iran should know that any foolish action will be met with a devastating response. This statement came after Iran's President Ebrahim Raisi expressed support for the Hamas attack, saying Israel needed to be held to account for endangering the region. The reason the latest Hamas-Israel fallout is surprising to so many is that, for months, the trend in the Middle East has been toward diplomatic reconciliation and the smoothing over of rifts. The conflict has erupted at a time when the United States is trying to negotiate a normalization deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia to counter China's growing influence in the region. Tehran has repeatedly warned Riyadh, with whom it recently reconciled diplomatic ties after years of tension, against establishing relations with Tel Aviv. The timing of the attack has thrown off experts and led to speculation that Hamas and its backer Iran were rattled by the progress made on the normalization deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Shortly after the October 7th attack, Palestinian leaders issued explicit messages warning Arab countries seeking normalization with Israel. Soon after, in its statement following the attacks, Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry carefully avoided condemning Hamas and instead reminded Israelis of its repeated warnings of the dangers of the explosion of the situation as a result of the continued occupation and deprivation of the Palestinian people of their legitimate rights, and the repetition of systematic provocations against its sanctities. This is being seen as the first critical clue of how Riyadh viewed the diplomatic consequences of the conflict, and it was not encouraging for Israel. Analysts suggest that the prospect of Saudi recognition of Israeli sovereignty would undercut Iran's voice in the Islamic world. The deal between Israel and Riyadh also spelled bad news, as it would effectively end the Muslim world's collective opposition to Israel, opening the door to similar deals with other Islamic nations. Saudi Arabia doesn't officially recognize Israel, but Riyadh's national security concerns seem to have now taken precedence over its support for an independent Palestinian state, with its greatest worry being a nuclear-armed Iran. Thus, in exchange for a normalization deal with Israel, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman wanted US-backed civilian nuclear energy programs and state-of-the-art American defense systems. Now, as Israel avenges the attack by pounding Gaza, Gazans scramble and die looking for safety, Hamas itself risks a demise, and Palestinians stare at losing support and sympathy to Israel. But Iran seems to be the only one standing to benefit if only it manages to derail the Saudi deal.